Welcome to another YouTube video where I forget to film my intro with the finished product actually here. I already delivered it. I'm gonna show you everything I did. What is it? It's a loft ladder. I made another loft ladder. I didn't ever think I would make one, let alone two in the last like 8 months or a year. I don't know a lot of people with lofts. It's kind of like a random thing to make. So if you have a loft and you can't get up there, watch this video. I'm gonna show you everything I did. If you don't have a loft, if you don't know what a loft is, you can learn what a loft is, I guess. But I'm gonna show you how to make a fancy wooden ladder, basically. I'm gonna show you everything I did. Stick around and you'll get to see it in the new house. I'll deliver it and everything. Watch this video. What is up, guys? Welcome to another video. If you're watching this, I seriously doubt you need to watch this because you need to make a loft ladder. It's kind of a weird thing to make. I feel like it's not too common. Like I said already, I have made 2 of these in the last year and I never thought I would really make one. But 2 people really needed them, so here I am. And I figured I'd make a video out of the second one. I didn't make a video of the first one. So as usual, these jobs begin with me pulling out some wood from the secret stash on the side of my house and just breaking them down, breaking the lumber down with my track saw, because that's definitely the easiest way to do it in my opinion. I'm just cutting 2 of the rails out of these 2 slabs, and then whatever's left over I'm gonna make the steps out of, and that's pretty much it. This whole build is just a lot of rinse and repeat, a lot of doing the same process over and over. By the end of completing this thing, I was so ready to just get it out because, oh my gosh, it was just a lot of doing the same thing over and over, as you're gonna see in a little bit, but I'll try to only show you one of everything. So once I cut down those rails, I took that leftover piece, kind of cut it down to the width. The rails are 2x6s, so the steps are about 5 inches wide here. And I'm just cutting down 10 of them. I think I needed 9, but I just made 1 extra, and I'm glad I did because one had a big knot in it and decided not to use it. So I had 9 solid ones I could use. Once I had them cut down to my rough length and width, I just took them over to my jointer to make one side flat. And then, as you guys know, you see that stack over there next to me, so I had to do all of them. Don't worry, I'm not going to show you all of them, but I will show you that on each one, I have this joiner set to the lowest cut setting because these were actually pretty flat already, so I'm just taking like barely anything off, but I did run them through like 2 or 3 times each. And once I did that to all of them, I took them back to my planer, just like all my other videos. I gotta come up with some new ways to mill up lumber, but haven't thought of anything yet, so it's not so boring. But yep, just putting them through the planer so that the other side is also flat, getting these things nice and straight and flat so that I can actually work with them. I'm also not going to show you the process that I did for the rails or the sides of this ladder because it's the exact same thing, just on a longer piece of wood, so it's not very exciting. But moving along here, once you're done getting all of your steps nice and flat, I got bored with that, so I just moved on to the rails here, and I'm just sanding them down. Not a very exciting process, just starting with some pretty coarse grit here, getting everything down. Customer said he didn't really care for epoxy or anything in this, so those knot holes that you see in there in the middle, I'm not even going to bother. They're not going to bother anyone, and you won't even really see them. Okay, so what I've done is I went over to my friend's house that this ladder's going in, and I took one of these beams and just kind of leaned it up onto the wall where it's gonna go. We just eyeballed it to what an angle could kind of fit in the space and what he wanted. And then I took my T-bevel gauge here. T-bevel gauge? Is that what they're called? I think so. So basically, if the piece was leaning up like this, I just took this to what was level with the floor and tightened this thing down and took it back home. So I don't know what this angle is. I mean, I could figure it out if I wanted to, but there's absolutely no need to do that because everything is going to be based off of this angle here. So just brought this back home, locked in place, and let me flip the camera around here. And you can see what I've done this is gonna be the edge. It's gonna be leaning this way. So I just took my gauge and put it up here and scribed a line. And I'm gonna cut both the bottoms. I'm just cutting kind of excess off. You can see on this one here, back here, there's a little chip there. So I'm just gonna cut that out. And then whatever remaining length I'm left with, I'm just gonna make them the same from there. So you don't need to focus too much on these being the same right now, because you can make them the same length over there at the top. But that's what I'm gonna do right now. Nice, that guy's good at explaining things. Once I had those lines marked out, I just got my track saw right on them. I figured this would also be the easiest way to do it, rather than wrestling these 10-foot long pieces onto my chop saw station and figuring out that angle. I just lined the track saw up and cut them off. And then here, don't worry, this is not the bottom, these are the tops. So I made the same kind of stylized lines on the tops of these rails, and I'm just cutting some angles, making kind of like a, I don't know what you would call this, maybe like a bullnose or something on the end of it, just to kind of give it a little bit of shape, so that it didn't look too abrupt. And the client wanted a really smooth feel to the ladder, so someone wouldn't get hurt and it'd be just really nice to the touch. So what I did on the last one was the same thing as this. This is a 3/4 inch round over bit, and these pieces are about maybe 1 3/4 inches thick. So it's not going to be a complete round over, but it's going to be pretty close after sanding. And you can see here that when I'm doing this, I actually like to make it so that the bit cuts a little too deep on the top, because that tiny little line on top is actually the perfect gauge to tell yourself how much you need to sand. And it sands away really easy, but it usually leaves a more uniform kind of round over, at least for me. It's kind of a nice way to do it. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you can kind of see it on the edge of every piece there. It's a little just beveled line that is really easy to sand off, and it's kind of a good gauge just to know that you've sanded enough. Once I did that with all those both those rails, I took all of my steps, and I need to make kind of that same profile for these. So I just took them over to my router table, put my round over bit in there, and I'm just gonna run each side through, both sides, on all 4 sides here. And this is the same process, obviously, as that end table video I did. So if you wanna see me make some custom flutes or ribs or tambour or whatever you wanna call them, I'm gonna tag the video right here, and you can go watch me do that. You can watch me make 100 pieces of this. It's super exciting, so go check that out. But anyway, I did this to all of the steps on both sides, so it had that nice rounded feel. Here you can see when I completed all of them, they were looking pretty sweet, and you can really see in the shot how pretty that wood is and how tight that grain is. Super sweet. So this is what I was talking about. You can kind of see there, I'm sanding off that top little beveled line and just making sure I'm getting a nice consistent round over. I would love to get one of those super soft orbital pads. I feel like that would be a really good application for this, but I don't have one of those. So I usually do it with my orbital, and then since I don't have a super soft orbital pad, sometimes it leaves kind of lines when you're doing this. That's why you want to really make sure you keep the orbital moving the whole time. And then usually I take my sanding block, a foam kind of pad, and put a more fine piece of sandpaper on there. This is probably 220 grit, and I'm just doing it by hand to try to get any lines out of there, harsh lines from the orbital. And I'm also, when you move it around like this, you can see the way the light hits that contoured edge and see if there's any harsh lines you need to take out. And so here you can see how those came out. It's actually not a full round over, but after sanding, it looks pretty close, kind of like like a bullnose. And so then it was just time to go back to these steps and start sanding them. You can see on the right there, one of them has a big knot or gouge in the side, and that was the one I ended up not using. That was kind of my backup in case something went wrong. And here for the finish, I wanted to pre-finish these before I assemble them to the ladder, because it's just going to be so much easier. And after working with this wood several times, I figured out that mist I think it's Mist 5% by Rubio Monaco, is the perfect natural finish, because the pure actually makes this wood look really yellow. And the tree is actually called, well, it's Tababuya, but it's called Golden Shower Tree. And when you put a finish on it, you can really see why it's called that, because the wood itself gets so golden, especially when it's wet. Like if you're chainsawing through this tree, when the wood's wet, it just looks golden. So it has that same effect when you put a finish on it, and obviously yellowing is not very desirable. So this mist kind of has a dulling agent, a little bit of white in it that kind of dulls it down. But you can still see in this video how golden this wood actually is, but it looks so natural. You can barely tell there's a finish on there at all. Once I had all those done, I took that T-bevel gauge back to my rails, and I'm just marking out where each step is going to be. Obviously, everything, again, is based off that one angle. Absolutely no math required here. It's not that I don't like math, it's just that this is actually, anytime you can use a marking gauge, it's always going to be more accurate in woodworking. So always find a way to use your tools in a way where you actually don't have to do any math, if that makes sense. One thing I'm not good at doing is when I'm kind of nervous about doing something, I usually do like a trial run off camera. I should have done it on camera, but I got a ton of these to do, so I'm going to show you guys the rest. But I'm pre-drilling the holes on the rails, and then I'm just clamping one of the steps up to it and then drilling the rest of the way down to pre-drill for those lags. They're like 6-inch lags, so it's a lot of drilling. You guys are about to see the rest right now. So what you can see here is I'm actually putting my drill in reverse just to get those holes started. Sometimes I find that if you just send it into that wood full blast, it can walk on you a little bit. So I just get it started in reverse and then punch my holes the rest of the way through. And really, this isn't that stressful. It's just these lags are so long, and the drill bit I need to use here is so long that, you know, there's a risk of, you know, blowing out that drill bit through the tops or the bottom of one of those steps. And that would be a big bummer. Like I said, I did have one backup, but still. And you can see, man, my camera work is just awesome, getting in the way every time there. And what I'm doing here is I'm just marking where that step exactly needs to go after I get those holes in. There's probably a bunch of different ways you can do it, but this is just the way I decided to do it. Clamped it down, flipped it over, and then it was time to send this bigger, longer drill bit all the way through. Like I said, it's about 7 inches down in there. The lag is about 6 inches, so definitely got to take your time with this. Make sure you're going pretty straight. If I was going to do any angle at all, I was just making sure that it wasn't going to the left or to the right, but at least, you know, horizontally deeper into the step, if that makes sense. But like I said, that step isn't that thick, so it can be kind of nerve-wracking with such a long drill bit. The thing isn't too stiff, it's a little bendy, so definitely it can move on you a little bit. And then all I'm doing here is I'm just taking a 1/2-inch countersink bit. There's other ways you could do this as well, but I just figured I'd throw this on my impact and just pound this thing in there. And I'm just drilling it down enough so that the lag can sit underneath the wood, because I'm going to custom make some plugs for it, some matching plugs. And once you get one of these lags in there, it's going to make that step pretty solid. So you don't really need the clamps on there for the rest, but you just want to make sure it's all lined up. And that's what it looks like after I got 2 on one side. And like I was saying earlier, this is a lot of just rinse and repeat. This took a long time. I don't think I even got this all done in one session here. I think this took me like 2 days of just drilling holes, and obviously your batteries die on your tools and stuff. So it definitely takes a while, but you can see I was hammering these things out, almost got them all done on one side. And then it hit me, oh man, I got to do this on the other side too. So sending that last lag in on this one side, getting pretty stoked. And you can see they're all spaced evenly. I made sure that they're spaced evenly from the bottom as well, and that there isn't going to be a step too high from the loft ladder floor. I made sure and did some measurements beforehand. So I got started on the other side. You can see behind my left hand there is a clamp. I'm just holding it together, lined them all up, and just sending it in from the side this way now, working my way all the way down the ladder. And it was time to start cutting some plugs, some matching plugs for all those holes. Whatever 9 times 6 is. What is that? 54. I needed 54 of these, and the crazy thing is I was able to get 27 out of each one of those rows, so it was perfect. And all I'm doing is just putting some Type Bond 1 in here because it dries a little quicker. Just squirting some in there and then pounding these things in. And I don't even really let the glue dry in there before I start sanding them off. I just take my orbital to them with some pretty coarse grit, 100 or 60 or 80 or anything like that will work great. And I'm just grinding them down. It goes super quick. And doing that to each one, and then you can just sand it all flush. So there's a ton of ways to skin a cat here. I mean, you could have a ton of different tools to do this one job, but honestly for this, the orbital is going to be the fastest, and it's not like it's any worse or anything. So that's what I chose to do here. And you can just barely see those things. And here it is. That thing is all finished, and actually in this shot the rails are unfinished and the steps are finished, and you can just see how natural that finish really is that I was talking about, that mist. Here it is in the space, obviously still under construction, leaning up in there, looks really good. And my friend just put some lags, since this thing is so sandwiched in between the wall and that railing up there, he just put some lags into the railing, into the wall, in a stud back there, and this thing is solid. It's not going to go anywhere. Alright, I just brought that ladder into my friend's house. He helped me get it in there. Looked awesome. Obviously the house isn't finished yet, so it'll look even better when the paper's off the floor and all that stuff. So I'll probably take some more videos of it in the space. Next up, I gotta make a dining table for him, so that's coming. And then there was those floating shelves in his kitchen I did batched out for him really quick. So you guys will see all of that if you haven't seen it yet. You can go to my Instagram for more pictures and videos, indwell.kauai, if you want to see more stuff on that ladder or what else is coming. Thanks for watching. See you guys on the next one. If there is one, there will be one.